Book it.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Welcome into another edition of Southwest Bias, live from Studio K, brought to you by our friends at Circle K. Don't forget to become a member of the Inner Circle. And where were you 5 years ago today? I know where I was, stuck in my house, like most of us were at that point, because we were going through COVID. And for a lot of us, it was a lonely time, a difficult time, a time where any sense of normalcy was important and that we rarely were getting. But then the NBA bubble came around, and that slight sense of normalcy started to emerge. We got sports back for the first time. And yeah, was it the normal sports? No. It was a bunch of NBA players sequestered in Florida, playing in front of nobody, in a gym not much bigger than most of the high school gyms in Arizona. But there were games, and they were broadcast on national television, and things started to feel a little bit better. But there was one moment that really stuck out to me, because during the bubble, I didn't have a job in media. I was working in the corporate world. But since we were stuck at home for all the Bubble Suns games, I did a live post-game show with my friends back on the solar panel. Dave King, myself, R.I.P. Dave, wound up doing these shows when I was technically supposed to be working, but they were the first, sense of normalcy, interaction-wise, to talk about the Suns. And Game 3, August 4th, 2020, 5 years ago today, was that moment where it felt like we kind of emerged as Suns fans back into that world that was a little bit familiar. Because Devin Booker, with the score tied 115-115, got the ball against the Clippers, dribbled in, faked, fell back, hit a jumper over Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and hit on that back and had his head up, right? And that moment started to change everything for the Suns. Devin Booker had a quote after that game talking about, "This is a fun team to be part of. We're having fun with it. This whole experience, we just wanted to come down here and make some noise, and that's what we're doing." That moment put the Suns at 3-0 in the bubble, but it was the start of something more. It was the start of something special. They finished 8-0 in the bubble, but that shot was when the NBA started to take notice of the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker. When fans started to realize that Devin Booker was on that next level. It ignited a Suns fan base that had been dormant for a decade, that had lost hope because of where they were. But that shot changed things. They emerged, Suns fans, from that coma they had been in. And it started a snowball effect. Because what happened in that bubble was Chris Paul was enamored with what Devin Booker and the Suns were doing. And he said this, "How I operate in this point in my career, I'm like, damn, Devin there, he nice. I already know he a dog." That moment, that shot, is when Chris Paul started to take notice of the Phoenix Suns and I assume started to think about what his future could be in Phoenix, right? That could he leave Oklahoma City and go to the Suns and help them take that next step? a decade without the playoffs, but an 8-0 bubble run that got people excited. Monty Williams said this about Chris Paul and what he saw in the bubble. He saw the way we played, and that may have been appealing to him. We like to think we're a team that plays a certain way that may be appealing to some guys. He saw the way they played and wanted to be a part of this team. Devin Booker's bubble buzzer beater 5 years ago today changed the course and the path of Suns history because Chris Paul determined during that bubble that Phoenix might be a place that he wanted to play. Fast forward a year later, and the team shocked the NBA world. They went to the finals because Chris Paul showed up. And because that team had matured in the bubble, the guys that remained into a cohesive unit, the young guys that were on that roster took that next step. One shot catapulted the Phoenix Suns into a new stratosphere that they hadn't been since 1993. They make the finals. The next year, they wind up setting a franchise record of 64 wins. That one shot in the bubble in front of nobody except the players on the benches and the coaches were there to witness it. Even the Suns broadcasters, both radio and television, were back here at PHX Arena. Actually, the little annex that used to be the Suns Athletic Club and now I think is like a doctor's office or a dentist's office right there on the east side of the building. They were in there calling the games from there. Nobody witnessed it in person, but that one shot changed the path of the Phoenix Suns 5 years ago. And yeah, has there been the ups and downs? Sure. But I'd take the last 5 years over the previous 10. Devin Booker changed the way that people viewed him. No longer was he a good scorer on a bad team. He was a guy that could elevate a team to be bigger than the pieces that were surrounding him. He got his iconic pose. Now when you see him on his back with his head up, you know that moment, and he's done it hundreds, or probably not hundreds, but at least dozens of times since then because that's his thing. A lot of things changed that day. And you're probably wondering, even, Elco 82 says opening old wounds. And Elco also saying looking to the past because the future doesn't look good. I actually think that moment provides some hope in this moment. The team wasn't very good in the regular season before that. They were young, inexperienced, not really galvanized, no direction, no personality. They were lost, had been for a decade. The last 2 years, the Suns have been completely lost. They haven't known who they are. They haven't known what they want to be. But one moment can change that. Devin Booker's still here. Is there another bubble buzzer beater? That kind of moment that could happen this season? That could change the course of where a lot of people think this is headed? I don't necessarily agree that it's headed in a bad direction like some think. But could there be that moment? A buzzer beater, a hustle play, something that defines this new era of Suns basketball. A toughness that changes things. A moment that changes the way that fans look at it as well. A moment that changes the way the NBA views this group. A moment that makes these young guys into a true team. That galvanizes a group that the expectations just aren't there with. I think so. I think it also could be a reminder to players why they wanted to be in Phoenix, right? I don't think they're going to be a championship team this year. I don't think they're going to be a true playoff contender. They weren't in the bubble. But a run, a moment, can set up the foundation for the next few years, can change the perception. You know, maybe they make the in-season tournament. Maybe there's a moment there. Maybe it's in the regular season. Devin Booker is that good. Devin Booker can be that guy to redefine things. Devin Booker, in a moment, in a blink of an eye, can help change the direction of things. And I know because we saw it 5 years ago, and I don't care if you don't think it's relevant to now, because it is. Because that's what happens in sports. There are moments that define teams. There are moments that define generations of teams. And that moment 5 years ago is something that I think we could see similar happen this year, that defines what we see with the future of Suns basketball, that changes fans' minds about this team. Do I think they'll become the Valley Boys? No, that was a weird phenomenon. But do I think that it could be some kind of era of attitude here in Phoenix? I do. 5 years ago today, we saw Devin Booker's buzzer beater. 5 years ago today, the Phoenix Suns changed for the better in that moment. History does repeat itself in sports and in life. I think it could happen again. But maybe that's just my Southwest bias. We welcome in Noah, the temporary mustache behind the Mac. Noah, how are you?
Good, my friend. How are you?
Good. Is me looking back 5 years ago at a major moment ridiculous in your mind, or do you believe that history can repeat itself in one way or another? I don't think another global pandemic's coming and that they're going to be sequestered and that kind of thing happens, but are you a believer that history can repeat itself?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it will never repeat itself in the same way, but, you know, there's it could be something very similar for sure.
Yeah, that was such a palpable moment, like a moment that I think Suns fans will remember. I don't care if it was in the bubble and it was weird basketball and we were having NBA games in August. That was a moment that nobody will forget, right? And where were not to get weirdly personal, but where were you during the NBA bubble? I mean, you up in Michigan, just kind of hanging out?
Yeah, I was at my college dorm, just chilling and going back and forth between. I remember watching that game though. I was at my girlfriend's apartment and we were just staying there and eating food and just chilling. I was like, oh, that's Devin Booker guy. He's turning out pretty good now.
Yeah, I mean, even non-Suns fans took notice. Killer Rex in the chat saying Suns and 4 guy was the real insane moment that turned things around. No, it was not a moment that turned things around. It was a drunken fan fighting somebody on the court's what changed it around. And yeah, it was a palpable moment in Suns fan base, on Twitter, in YouTube comments. When you talk to your friends that were Suns fans, people talked about that moment in a way that we did not really have before that in the bubble. But again, maybe that's just my Southwest bias. I think it's a moment that you got to go back and look at and remember for multiple reasons. But on the other side of the break, it got me thinking. It's been a busy 5 years. It actually feels like 2 lifetimes since 2020, right? So who's part of the all half-decade team? What Arizona athletes would be looked at as the best of the last 5? We'll find out right after this. Got to tell you about my friends at All Pro Shade Concepts. I've told you a lot of things about All Pro Shade Concepts, right? And I've talked about how hot it makes in my house, that window, if it's not covered. And it'd been a while since I left the shade up. And I did it yesterday, and I walked in the kitchen, and it felt like 100 degrees in the kitchen near the door, just because I had forgot to put the shade back down. Put the shade down, hour later, It was fantastic again in there because that's what these shades do. They help keep your house cooler, but they look great as well, and they're made of premium material. Plus, the customer service is the best that you will ever have in any home repair or home improvement. I was impressed. They were fantastic. And, if I have a question, they're still there to help. So call 623-204-1476 or visit allproshadeconcepts.com to get your free estimate today. Phoenix Raceway. It's NASCAR Championship Weekend, October 31st through November 2nd. It's coming back here to the desert, and I am a believer when it comes to NASCAR after going out to the race last year. Never had been, had some bias about it. I won't lie. But went out there, and when I experienced it in person, the venue is elite. Probably my favorite venue in Arizona sports. But then the experience is even better. Right? If you get in that Desert Diamond Casino infield experience, you get to see the racers beforehand. You get to see them walking out to their car. You wind up actually getting a pre-race concert. It is unbelievable, and I highly recommend that you check it out because tickets are going fast. Tickets, hospitality, upgrades are still available. Get yours now at phoenixraceway.com. A big hello to the biased in the chat. My wife, Meatloaf, Killer X, everybody that's in there. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're here every day at 11 a.m. Giving you the best in Arizona sports. Opinions, news, whatever you need, we've got it here. And we're talking all half-decade team now, right? I took that trip back to 2020, but it got me wondering, who are the top athletes of the last 5 years of the 2020s so far? And looking at it, it's some surprise. Like, we have this kind of bent that it's not always great here. And we don't always celebrate individual achievement very well. But when you look at James Conner, he's going to be the first one on our list. I got 6 people that qualified for my all half century team or half decade team here. James Conner on my list. Since 2021 and joining the Cardinals, he has 3,668 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, 37 touchdowns, and a Pro Bowl appearance. This guy has been the workhorse of the Cardinals offense, one of the most consistent players in the NFL in the backfield. And I don't think this Cardinals team is on the verge of a breakout without him. He's actually a major focal point of the offense now. Drew Petzing looks at him as a bell cow, as a guy that can help carry this offense. And the last 5 years have proven that, right? He has shown, or the last 4 years that he's been here, he's shown that he's that number one running back. He's probably he's probably the most consistent running back the Cardinals have had. David Johnson had a few seasons and kind of flashed, but James Conner, when you go back to even 1988 all the way through now here in Arizona with the Cardinals, is probably one of the most consistent running backs in the Cardinals' history in Arizona. Kyler Murray, next on my list, number 5 on the all half decade team. We give this guy a whole lot of grief. A lot of people here have tried to run him out of town. But when you look at this, it's the best 5-year run a quarterback's had in Arizona. I know Kurt Warner was good, but it was brief. Carson Palmer was good. It was brief. Oh, by the way, this is with a large amount of games missed because of that knee injury as well. 15,776 yards in 5 years with this team. 67% completion percentage. 95 touchdowns, 45 interceptions. 50 more touchdowns. I can do that math, Noah. That's simple math. That's 50 more touchdowns than interceptions. That's pretty damn good, especially when you look at some of these quarterbacks that we saw, and we were lucky if they had the same amount of touchdowns as they had interceptions over the years. Meatloaf says they try to run him out, but they can't catch him. That's damn true, right? I think that's a fantastic point, and very, very funny there, Meatloaf as well. But, he's a 2-time Pro Bowler, something that was rare for Cardinals quarterbacks before him. But speaking of the speed that Meatloaf is talking about, the rushing stats are crazy. 2,476 rushing yards, 27 rushing touchdowns. What he's done with his legs, the chaos he's created with running and scrambling has been crazy as well. And that's not accounting for the times he scrambled that led to some of those passes and those touchdown passes. Kyler Murray by far deserved to be one of the top athletes in Arizona over the last 5 years. And he's been spectacular, even if the record hasn't always shown it. He's been spectacular. Now he needs to finish seasons stronger, no doubt about that. But what he's done has been very good, and I think people need to remember that a little bit more. I'll probably take heat for this, but quite frankly, I don't give a crap. Diana Taurasi is on my list. She was fantastic in her time here, 2020 to 2024. I mean, this isn't even talking about her career prior to this that was spectacular and puts her towards the top of the list in terms of athletes all time in Arizona. But just in the 4 years that she played in this half decade, 16.2 points per game, 4.1 assists, 3.8 rebounds per game, 2 All-Stars, took her team to the finals and was a top candidate for MVP that year in her late 30s, and hit the career 10,000 point mark for the first time ever in WNBA history. Diana Taurasi was spectacular even at the end of her career. Hell, at the end of her career, she was my age. And she was still smoking fools out there in the NBA. Diana Taurasi deserves to be on this list as much as anybody. And I was truly impressed that even at the tail end of her career, at the late stages of her career, she still found ways to dominate while leading. Diana Taurasi is one of the top 6 athletes of the last 5 years, without a doubt. Another guy that no longer here in Arizona as of last week, but had a bigger impact than I think most people realized over the last 5 years, and in his 6 total years in the Valley, is Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly, 49 wins, 3.58 ERA, 1.162 whip, a World Series appearance, an unexpected World Series appearance. Home state guy makes good. Comes from the Korean Baseball League, comes in here and winds up being the 3rd winningest pitcher in Diamondbacks history. Sure, one of those years was 2019. I'll fudge a little bit. But 49 wins over a 5-year period was spectacular. One of the best runs as a starting pitcher in Arizona sports history, in Arizona Diamondbacks history. Merrill Kelly is underrated in what he was able to do here. Merrill Kelly was the ace of that staff. I don't care what anybody says. Some people try to make the argument for Zach Gallen. No. Merrill Kelly was the ace of that staff, and in some ways the heart of that team. And I hope that they look at what it will cost to bring him back. I hope it was a rope-a-dope. Send him to Texas with the full well knowing that come the offseason, he's going to want to be back here in Arizona. Get those prospects and get Merrill back. Because the 5 years he just put up were unbelievable in what he was able to do. He was a fantastic starting pitcher and the anchor of that rotation, hands down. But the guy that we started this entire show talking about, 5 years ago it started in the bubble, and that hot streak has continued. I don't care if you want to tell me it was a down season last year for Devin Booker. He still was top 10 in points and assists. And this 5-year run is one of the best 5-year runs we've ever seen in Arizona sports, and likely the best 5-year run we've seen from any Suns player. 26.5 points per game, 5.8 assists per game, 4.5 rebounds a game, 4-time All-Star, made the finals, 2 gold medals, went out there and showed up and showed out for his country. He was spectacular, and he also helped lead the team to its franchise record in wins, 64 wins. Devin Booker's 5-year run is something that we will talk about for a very long time. And guess what? He just entered his prime. We may have a better 5 years on deck. Oh, and in that time, he rounded out and became a leader, became a pillar of this community, became a guy that, also is the franchise leader in points all time, surpassing Walter Davis. 5 years of some of the most impressive basketball that we've seen. I'm going to put him number 2, though. And that might surprise you, because that run probably should deserve credit as the number 1. But there's a guy that in one season changed the trajectory of a football program that had been dead. Had been dead. Not dormant, not some sleeping giant. It was dead and buried in a lot of ways. Cam Skattebo last season did insane things. Total yards, 2,316. Total touchdowns, 24. He was first team All-American. He was the Peach Bowl offensive MVP. He won a Big 12 championship. He was first team All Big 12. This is a guy that was playing in the Big Sky Conference at Sacramento State 2 years prior. This was a guy that came out of nowhere and finished in the Heisman. He was at the Heisman ceremony. He was one of the top 5 players in college football in the country. That 1-year run was unbelievable and earns him that spot for me. I'm not even an ASU guy. I went to the school down south. I'm a University of Arizona guy. Have rooted for U of A football for a long time. And even I was floored by what Cam Skattebo did. A lot of people were. A lot of people were completely caught off guard. He put that program on the map again, right? He put that program back in the conversation. He got that team in the college football playoff by himself. Sam Levitt deserves some credit too. But he helped take Kenny Dillingham's message and get people on the field and off it to buy in to ASU's program at a time where that's the biggest currency, because if you don't buy in, people don't donate that money, you can't pay players. College football landscape has completely changed. And Cam Skattebo may have put the Arizona State Sun Devils in a place to succeed for a long time. So he's number 1 on my list. By the way, Meatloaf says Beal is number 1 for being dutifully injured. If I were making a list of biggest failures over the last 5 years, he'd be high on it. By the way, Chris Melton, thank you for being in the chat. She's scared that she agrees with me on this program. You haven't been around a lot, Chris, on this program. I'm making a lot more sense than I used to. So maybe you should stop by more, and I can really scare you by how much you agree with me. And anytime that you can have Killer Rex completely disagreeing with you, you are in the right. We've learned that here at PHNX, that if you are on the opposite side of Killer Rex, you are doing something right. So that is another Southwest Bias. A big shout out to the mustache behind the Mac the temporary mustache behind the Mac. Noah, a big shout out to the biased in the chat. Before you head out, hit that like button. Hit that like button and subscribe. Chris says, I listen. I'm usually just driving. And you haven't driven off the road because you agree with me. So that's a win as well. So there we go, Chris. Glad to have you here as well. So that is another edition of Southwest Bias in the books. We will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. with more. I don't know what we'll talk about, but we'll figure it out. You can follow the show at PHNX_sports. You can follow me at Espo. And remember, just because it's history doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact on the future. Ahoy, hoy!
We all silly like the mayor.